Mm. Good morning and welcome to the YouthWorks online World Youth Skills Day webinar. This year's theme is centered on skills for a resilient youth. This morning, I'd like to welcome everybody. My names are Yvonne Mwangi from Immobilis, and I'll be one of the moderators for this session.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Immaculate Mutinda. I'll also be a moderator for this session. Welcome all.
This morning, we are very honored to be joined by Nyambura Kariuki, CS Advisor, MOICT, Dr. Ehud Gashugu, Ajira Digital Director, KEPSA, Patrick Karanja, Program Partner, Digital Economy, the Mastercard Foundation, and Dr. Guan Tai, the CEO, TVET, CDA, CC. In a short brief, the government of Kenya, through the Ministry of ICT and in partnership with academia, civil society, and private sector, set up in 2016 the Ajira Digital Program to bridge the gap between skills demand and lack of jobs. The program aims to introduce young people to digital and digitally enabled work and provide the tools, training, and mentorship needed for young people to work and earn an income with dignity, achieving the country's objective of a globally competitive, knowledge-based middle-income economy in an increasing digital world. And with those short words, I'd like to introduce Nyambura Kariuki, CS Advisor. Apologies for that. I would like to introduce Dr. Ehud Gashugu, Ajira Digital Director, KEPSA.
Okay, good morning, everyone. And once again, I want to thank the team, Yvonne and Immaculate, for their great introductions. For the reason why we are here today, again, I also want to take this opportunity to welcome all of you to this very important webinar, which is part of global efforts towards celebrating World Youth Skills Day. Relatedly, I also want to really acknowledge the presence of representatives from the Ministry of Education, representatives from the Ministry of ICT, Innovation, Youth Affairs, the Mastercard Foundation, panelists drawn from the private sector and youth, members of the private sector, as well as the hosting entities, which is Immobilis and KEPSA, which are part of the Ajira Digital Program that Yvonne has alluded to. So today marks the 6th year of celebrating the World Youth Skills Day, since it was inaugurated in 2015. And the theme for this year's celebration is Skills for a Resilient Youth. More than ever before, this year World Youth Skills Day recognizes the strategic importance of supporting young people and equipping them with the relevant skills for employment, decent work, entrepreneurship, that then highlights the crucial role that skills youth play in addressing the ever-growing global challenges of economic growth and advancement. So the World Skills Day for this year really comes at a very challenging time in the context of COVID-19, where we're experiencing tremendous changes and challenges worldwide due to disruptions in the education sector, and especially on the TVET sector, which highly depends with physical training, but also more importantly on learn by doing. So as much as we are shifting the training virtually, we are aware of the immense challenge that the training in TVET really is experiencing. However, this disruption in education also brings on new opportunities for innovation in education by taking advantage of rapid digital transformation that's taking place across all the sectors. So, initiatives like the JIRA, as has been mentioned, plays a very critical role in ensuring inclusivity of youth in the digital economy through provision of relevant skills and linkages to job opportunities. So for this year, the theme of the year is building a resilient young people. And resilience in the wake of COVID-19 means that young people have to think differently and they have to be prepared differently to face the new challenging of the unfolding economic situation. So this will entail making sure that young people have capacity and capability to actively participate in both employment and entrepreneurship across the sectors as a way of rebuilding the economy. In this aspect, the theme of this year then helps us to think through how to develop highly adaptive, dynamic, versatile, innovative, and agile youth who then support the future of work agenda, which is a top priority for all actors and governments across. So lastly, we do want to underline the importance of the private sector in supporting this catalytic effort that's required to develop these skills for a resilient youth. So private sector plays a crucial role in the national and economic development, especially in job creation for youth. So alignment of this effort by all actors, including public sector and social sector, is critical at a time like this. So this webinar today, therefore, then would highlight various efforts that are in place and that are taking place in our country that are geared towards building the resilience of young people. Or particularly, we do really want to underscore the importance of digital skills and digital jobs, which offers young people a new horizon of opportunities that they can take advantage to continue transforming themselves as they transform our country. With this remarks, I do really want to welcome all of you once again to this very, very important webinar. And I do hope that you're going to have an opportunity to learn as we contribute to the global solution of developing a resilient youth. Thank you, and I wish you a very fruitful webinar. Over to you, Yvonne and Immaculate.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ehud Gashugu. We really appreciate your words. With no further ado, I would like to welcome Nyambura Kariuki, CS Advisor, Ministry of ICT.
Okay. Right. So good morning, everybody. And thank you, Yvonne and Ehud, for the introductions and for setting the scene. We're excited here today as Ministry of ICT to participate in this forum. And we're going to speak to you about the Nigeria digital program, but more so just about the skills for the future. Because in Nigeria, we believe the future works online. We're moving into a world of continuous learning. So when we talk about skills for resilient youth, it's about equipping ourselves for continuous learning, because the skills we learn today are not the same skills that we're going to be needing in a year's time or 2 years' time. And so it's about setting up an ecosystem that will be able to guide us to know what is needed in the market and how we can be able to take advantage of the opportunities that they arise. So before I go into the Ajira program, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Ministry of ICT and what we do there as the ministry. Our mission is really to facilitate universal access to ICT infrastructure and services across the country, with the aim of getting Kenya as a globally competitive knowledge-based economy. This, as you know, is our Vision 2030, and as a ministry, we really drive towards this. We are aligned to the Sustainable Development Goals, and all our interventions are based on achieving this. So what does the ministry do? We formulate, we administer, we manage, and we really develop policies around information, broadcasting, communications, technology, film, and youth policies. So over the past 5 years, our mandate has been growing. It used to be ICT and broadcasting. We now have youth and film in our docket. And this is really prime because all these ecosystem players are together. You can't talk about youth without ICT nowadays. And really, when it comes to film and the creative sector, taking advantage of the technology and opportunities that arise from technology is something that that really seamlessly comes together. So if we were to put our focus areas into three big buckets as a ministry, there's three things we look at. E-government in terms of providing really essential services to the entire country in a seamless manner from wherever citizens are. So we look forward to a time when nobody needs to travel to Nairobi to get a passport. All the services are being delivered where you are. The second one, and for us to attain that, is really having a comprehensive infrastructure, all the way from the fiber to the storage facilities to the applications and all that. And then the most important one is really the industry and ecosystem development. To do this, we have quite a number of policies, laws, plans, and strategies that we work on. I won't go through all of these. I'd like to highlight just two main ones, the National ICT Policy 2019 and the Digital Economy Blueprint. These are very significant for us, especially because they really set the pace in terms of what we mean by skills for a resilient youth. In the ICT policy objectives, we look at 4 key pillars. The first one being mobile first. Majority of Kenyans access the internet for the very first time in their lives through a mobile device. So ensuring that there's ubiquitous connectivity, there's affordable connectivity, so that many of you are able to connect to such platforms and even do e-learning and learn from wherever you are. For that to be a possibility, we have to have a policy that is geared towards ensuring that this is being attained across the country. The second one is having basically a predictable, reliable, and a competitive environment, a marketplace that leverages on technology for exchange of goods and services. The third one, which is where we're here today, is a skills and innovation. And for us to jumpstart a self-supporting ecosystem, we need a citizenry that is able to take advantage of the opportunities that are coming on board, a citizenry that is able to really utilize technology to deliver whatever things that they would want to do. And then finally, the public service delivery, which I had discussed on. On the digital economy blueprint, we have 5 pillars. And the blueprint is really looks at setting the foundations for Kenya in terms of how we want to be in 2030. This blueprint was launched last year in Rwanda at the Smart Africa conference, and it's really been shared with the entire Africa population to enable us to leverage on each other and to use economies of scale to grow our businesses. The 5 pillars that we focus on here are digital government, digital business, infrastructure, innovation-driven entrepreneurship, and then most importantly is digital skills and value. Underlying all this is an enabling environment where we have integrated ecosystem, data, emerging trends, green ICT, security, and of course, an enabling policy and regulation framework. When it comes to digital skills and values as envisioned by the ICT policy and also the digital economy blueprint, we're looking to really produce high quality skilled graduates that can take advantage and thrive in their areas of expertise. And what we mean here is whether you're a carpenter, you're able to really leverage on technology to showcase your products to your customers and deliver your services to them. You're able to build a trust profile and take advantage of technology. So I don't think there's any industry right now in the world that cannot not technology. Accountants 20 years ago never used to use any computers at all. An accountant today needs to have very good skills in Excel and spreadsheets. And it's even moving towards another level where there's artificial intelligence being added onto their ecosystem. And so all citizens have to be aware of the technology trends, how to take advantage of it, whether as users or as innovators. And with that, the Ajira program doesn't sit in an ecosystem of its own. The government is aware that for us to be able to really leverage and deliver for the youth, we have to be able to work in an ecosystem that is thriving. And so the number one place and the number one innovation that we rely on is the universities, the TVETs, and the polytechnics. This is where the youth are able to acquire their actual skill, whether it's carpentry, masonry, architectural, any skill that you want, software development. This is where the universities have an engagement. From there, we have other programs around now once students come out of university, allowing them to be able to take advantage of opportunities in the market. Some of them, and I hope you're aware of them, are things like ACPO, which is access to government procurement opportunities, that really lowers down and brings a level play field for youth with startups and small businesses to take advantage and be able to get government contracts. There's a Kenya Youth Empowerment Opportunities Project that really looks at providing internship and artisan skill sets to graduates from TVET. There's a Huduma White Box that looks at growing startups. So if you have an idea, a product, and you want to understand how to grow it and you need government assistance, go to whitebox.go.ke and you'd be able to get assistance in terms of how to protect your IP. And also we are able to lobby and to find funding to incubate you so that your product can be able to grow. There's of course the affirmative funds. Part of growing a business, growing an enterprise is being able to have access to funds. Many of our youth don't have these opportunities. And so the Uwezo Fund, the Youth Fund, the Women Fund, all these funds sit in a bucket to be able to enable the youth. There's a National Employment Authority that is run by the Ministry of Labor. That is also of very significance that youth should take advantage on. There's a Ajira Youth Empowerment Centers. These are physical centers that are across the country, and I'll talk about them later when I'm talking about the Ajira program. And then of course, there's a Kenya Labor Market Information System. This is where we want to aggregate the data so that the youth can know what skill sets are in demand from the private sector. And likewise, the private sector can know what skills are coming out of our universities. And so by offering those linkages and being able to understand the market, youth can be able to choose careers, not based on hype, but based on actual facts on what is being sought out in the market. And with that context of the ministry and all the different programs that exist, I'd like to drill down further slightly into the Ajira Digital Program, which really looks at creating job opportunities for every Kenyan in an ever increasing world of digital connectivity. What does this mean? We want Kenya to be recognized globally as a leading freelancing hub by 2022. And we really look at getting Kenya to have at least 1 million youth earning from decent wages from digitally enabled jobs. When we talk of digitally enabled jobs, it's really everybody in the ecosystem, whether it's a traditional online work that used to be the data entry, content writing, transcription, to your typical skill sets that used to look for formal employment, the software development, accounting, civil engineering, architecture, to also the blue collar ecosystem where we have the carpenters, masons, nannies, plumbers, taxi drivers is a good example where Uber and Little Cabs and all the other applications, platforms are really enabling these drivers to get more customers, to get trust profiles, and to get more work than they would ordinarily have been able to do. So what Ajira seeks to do is to grow this ecosystem, and the program is structured into 4 key pillars to be able to enable this. Each of those 4 key each of these pillars was established from surveys and interacting with the ecosystem and understanding the challenges that were hindering the growth of the gig economy. The first one was access to dignified work. So everybody we talked to, every youth who were asking, why don't you go online to look for work, used to ask us where is the work. And when we talk to corporates, they used to tell us we don't know how to place the work onto platforms. So if you go right now to your neighbor and ask them, how do I get a decent plumber? Our ecosystem works with word of mouth. And so very few people then end up getting work, and the rest of the ecosystem has to travel for long distances or spend hours and ages searching for jobs to be able to get them. So we had to be, the Ajira program looks to really bring this together and have platforms, support the growth of platforms such as iBuild, Link, Kuhustle, and also give awareness of the international platforms such as Upwork and the rest, and entice the private sector to be able to take advantage of these platforms and place their work on these platforms so that youth can be able to find it. In order for this to happen, there was a training and mentorship component. Many of the youth that we interact with have no idea how to get started. And so at Ajira, we run programs of work readiness training. It gives them ethics and etiquettes on how to deal with clients. Because really, if you're working on a digital platform, you don't need to be there in person. By the time you, for example, get a job for plumbing, a customer has sought you out from a platform, they've seen your profile, they've seen your ratings, and then they now ask you to come and survey the job that they need done and quote them. But half of the selling is being done on a digital platform. So the youth need to understand how to build their profiles, how to be able to set it up so that people can take advantage of that. The other bucket is awareness. Alongside the training and mentorship, what we found is part of growth of the gig economy, of the digital economy, is just driving the awareness that, did you know you can be able, for example, as a competitor, to get more jobs by joining such platforms? Did you know that as an architect, you can be able to design buildings, not only for Kenya, but for all of Commonwealth, and all the countries that were under the British colony, because the systems are the same. And so it's really about driving awareness and letting our youth know what is available out there. And then finally is access to infrastructure. Understanding that many of our youth do not have the facilities at home to be able to work, the computers, the internet. And so we're rolling out facilities across the country. At the moment, we have over 300, with 189 operational, with internet, and working with Immobilis and KEPSA to equip them with center managers and run regular programs that youth can be able to take advantage of. And I'll be able to give you details of where you can find these centers. Alongside the pillars are programs that we run with a specific focus of growing the ecosystems. The first one is SMEs. They are the largest employers in this ecosystem. They need to understand how to take advantage of technology, how to grow, how to get the tasks done. So we completely understand that an SME might not be able, for example, to have in their team a full technology department. But if they need a website developed, if they need it managed, if they need content, we are able to work with them to show them how to work with freelancers to get the services that they need. They also might not be able to hire an accountant full-time, but they only need their accounting services done at the end of every month and at the end of the year. So we're able to show them how to structure themselves to take advantage of this ecosystem through the technology platforms, which is the second programs that we work where we look at local platforms as well as internationals. We engage them and we really help them grow. We drive awareness. Whenever we have functions, we bring them to our functions so that the youth can be able to know that this ecosystem exists, and I can be able to earn a living by having a profile that I can take advantage of. Training and mentorship I've already talked about, and then communication is really making sure that our message is being reached to the grassroots. Our youth do not need to come to Nairobi to look for jobs. We have youth working in we have youth working in the coast, we have youth working in Kakamega on digital platforms. And so we want to drive the awareness that you can be able to earn a decent wage from where you are without having to move to urban centers. And as a ministry, if we continue driving for ubiquitous connectivity, ensuring that youth have access to internet at home at the same speeds as a youth in Nairobi, and we'll be able to see this ecosystem thrive. Underlying all these are enablers that the program runs, which is infrastructure that I've talked about, labor and market information, working very closely with the Bureau of Labor to make sure that this is out there. And then, of course, we need a harmonized legal and policy framework, ensuring that the startups, the youth are not being overtaxed, they understand investigations, that they really understand what is needed to help them grow, and the skills that they need to get to do that. So if I was to describe Ajira in a nutshell on one slide, this would be it. On the left-hand side, the right-hand side are all the workers. They could be in the white collar, the blue collar, or the gig economy. At the center is Ajira that is connecting everybody. It's aggregating and reporting. It's driving awareness. We run a lot of training programs, and we also offer and partner with partners to provide free training content to our users. We have centers. And then most importantly, we offer platforms and small businesses access to government data through verifying identity. And we are working on verifying things like educational qualifications and other aspects that will enable the platforms to grow. So what have we done today? As Yvonne mentioned, the program was launched in 2016. It took a while to understand the ecosystem, to design the program, to prototype different aspects of the program. And we've really walked the journey with some of the youth in building this program. We we launched our website, ajiradigital.go.ke, back in 2016. We've evolved and we've innovated, and we are also going to keep evolving and innovating around it. We did a big pilot and initial implementation with KEPSA as a partner and the Rockefeller Foundation in 2017. And there we trained close to 7,000 youth in 1 month on really work readiness training on how to take advantage of the ecosystem. Back then we centers with the GIN 2020 is we're looking at scaling worldwide. We have now representation in most of we have 189 ones. We have a curriculum that is available. We are adjusting ourselves to be able to offer this curriculum virtually, and we're working very this. And we have content. We have training content. Right now, we're running a promotion with Cisco. If you want to learn about entrepreneurship, if you want to learn about cybersecurity, if you really just want to learn a skill in this period and leave COVID better than you entered, there's content available on Ajira, and we'll be posting much more content for you to get and learn something. And 2021 going forward, we're looking at sustainability. We're looking at how can we position Ajira so that it runs by itself. It's a community-based program. Right now, Ajira is championed by the ministry. It was started by the ministry, but we have Immobilis having a full Ajira team. We have KEPSA having a full Ajira team, and we want also setting up Ajira clubs. So that Ajira is for everyone, and anybody can be able to access it where they are and take advantage of the programs that we have. In terms of numbers, as I said, we have a portal. We have close to 120,000 youth registered on it at the moment. What we've been doing there is we give them fast opportunity to access our programs for those who have been registered. So whenever we have a partner who's looking to employ, we send job alerts, but we also offer them training and send out and do communication through the registered users. We have the centers, and we also really much we have programs tailored towards the creative sector, the film industry, the music industry. We have a lot of talent out there, and we have 5 studios available for youth to go to be able to use. They can book the studios on the platform and go record. And we've partnered with KBC and Y254 to be able to air the content. And so this is work in progress, but the studios are available for use. So far to date, we've engaged and trained over 52,000 youth on Ajira. We have about 700 TOTs. Many of them were from the TVETs and universities, and this is a program that we need to continuously activate and work on. We have 41 Ajira clubs across university and TVETs, and really what we're looking for is to have an Ajira club in every single university, because the clubs are run by the students for the students, and it's in the clubs that the students are able to help each other on how to leave university and find a job immediately. So you don't have to talk about tarmacking anymore. There's no need to tarmac. You can find a job, you can find a gig online, and we want you to be proud that you have a gig that when you add it up together earns you decent wages. And finally, we always run a survey every year, understanding how many people are working on digital platforms. This year we ran one, and it was in March, just around the time COVID disrupted the nation, and we got 677,000 people are working on digital platforms. I want to emphasize the need for partnerships. Ajira is a ministry project, but it's really an entire government and private sector initiative. For this to work, we're working very closely with the private sector, bodies such as annex bodies such as KEPSA, and really with the freelancers themselves through an association called Upwork. And also we work with the platforms. We are an open ecosystem. We help those who come to us, and we also seek out others. And we also really leverage on the existing educational structure. The universities are key for us, because that is where the youth are shaped to earn a skill, and then we come in to give them work readiness and sustainability and access to content to upskill themselves post the university and TVET. One such perspective to highlight for the purposes of this session is the master for very closely for this next 3 years, and with them we have designed five key programs that the youth will have a big impact on. Program 1 and 2 are being run by Immobilis, which is really about having staff available to offer training and mentorship. And whereas this staff was supposed to be situated at the centers, we are now making them virtual. And so you will soon be seeing a lot of training coming out from Program 1 and 2, offering work readiness training, transcription, digital marketing training, e-commerce. Just basically, as we start understanding the needs in the market, we will design curriculums for us to issue out on that. And then, of course, engaging on mentorship through the e-mobilis component. The other component on KEPSA is really looking at where the jobs are coming from. And on this one, we have some exciting projects coming up, which is from government transcription work from the judiciary, as well as other government agencies, and from the private sector, really have the efforts of interpreter on local platforms and get local jobs, because the international ecosystem is continuously getting very competitive due to COVID and the impact of COVID on the lives and careers of very many people across the globe. And with that, I'd really like to encourage all of you to register on ajiradigital.go.ke. We do send out notifications. There's training, you can find work, and whenever we offer training, it's on a first come, first served basis. And so we like transparency and openness, and this portal is our way of ensuring that whoever registers is able to access the trainings that we will be doing to the public. And that's all I had. I'm open for questions, but I'm welcoming all to build a working nation together, which for us means continuous learning for you for you to really sustain your careers, because times are changing, and change is the only constant that we have in the lives and the world that we lead in now. So thank you, and over to you, Yvonne, for the rest of the session.
Great. Thank you so much, Nyambura, for the detailed presentation and for breaking it down for us. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure all of us appreciate that. I'd like to encourage everyone to take note of the handles, the Twitter handles, and the hashtags that we're using on social media today to showcase this particular webinar. They're in the chat box. I will just copy paste it again for anyone who may have missed it. And then we will be having a Q&A session after the presentations from, we have two other presenters. So soon after that, we'll have an open Q&A. So guys, you're welcome to type in your questions in the chat box, or you can just keep your question packing and we'll be able to unmute you and you can address the speakers. But for now, I would like to introduce I'd like to introduce Patrick Karanja. But before I do that, I would just like to give a brief of the MasterCard Foundation. In Kenya, the MasterCard Foundation, through its new initiative, Young Africa Works, is a public-private partnership between the MasterCard Foundation, the private sector, and the government of Kenya. The initiative aims to support 5 million young Kenyans to access dignified and fulfilling work over the next 5 years. Young Africa Works in Kenya is aligned to the country's economic priorities, including the big 4 sectors, enhancing manufacturing, food security and nutrition, universal health coverage, and affordable housing, as well as the digital economy. Young Africa Works will ensure 30 million young people in Africa, particularly young women, secure dignified and fulfilling work. And with that, I'd like to introduce Patrick Karanja, Program Partner, Digital Economy, MasterCard Foundation. Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you, Yvonne, and for the team that went ahead of me. Happy World Youth Skills Day to everyone. I will put into context the discussion and the presentation that was preceding mine, and I thank you very much, Yvonne, for the introduction. Allow me to share my screen on that, just to have a brief overview of the MasterCard Foundation, and I will zero in on the digital economy. Our mission remains to advance learning and promote financial inclusion for people in poverty. And I'd like to draw attention to our vision, which is very apt to this day, seeking a world where everyone has the opportunity to learn and prosper. Young Africa Works, as shared earlier, is an ambitious goal to enable 30 million young people, particularly young women, to secure dignified and fulfilling work by the year 2030. I'm sorry, I'm going to minimize this. And we see this being done through a couple of pathways or channels. One is to be very specific in working with country priorities to strengthen education and vocational training. Secondly is to grow small businesses and entrepreneurship. I think we heard Nyambura talk about majority of jobs or majority of work will tend to be in small businesses, and to connect job seekers to employers. We've seen that there's a gap there, and I'll talk a little bit about it. And the second one is to implement regional programs that extend beyond the country-specific aspects to drive education, entrepreneurship, and digital innovation to improve financial inclusion. We work with African organizations, or prefer to work with African organizations where possible, domestic or local organizations, including government, the private sector, and other actors in the spaces of interest. We're looking to empower young women, and we're very specific about empowering young women. And we see technology as both an enabler to drive impact and scale, while at the same time working and building shared evidence of what works and how that builds on our interactions and the work that we are doing. That's at the Africa level and the Young Africa strategy at the continent level. In Kenya, we're looking at 5 million jobs as an aspirational goals, getting access to dignified and fulfilling work. And more specifically, we are seeing 3 key areas that we will be able to do that. The first one is from the main strategy, the micro, small, and medium enterprises, MSMEs as some would prefer to call them. And here we're looking to leverage the reach and capabilities of large financial institutions to accelerate their growth. Our strategy is very well aligned with Kenya's Vision 2030, going back to us working with the priorities of each country and prioritized big 4 sectors. And that includes manufacturing, food security and nutrition, health, and affordable housing, as earlier said. The other one is technical and vocational education and training. And this looks at strengthening the quality and relevance of our TVET institutions and the work that is under TVETs, and connecting the graduates to work opportunities or supporting them in starting their enterprises. The third, which is a middle pillar, is building on Kenya's progress in digital entrepreneurship by providing training and skilling on critical digital skills and leveraging technology to connect young people to work. The themes cut across and continue to be the same across. I'll go a little bit into the delivery, and it was touched on a little bit. The priority on supporting micro, we have partners who we see as critical actors in the space of implementation and in the space of interacting with those who would benefit most. And the first partner, as an example, we have others, is the Equity Bank Limited and the Group Foundation. The partnership here being to grow MSMEs through training and access to finance, and we have facilities and solutions that we are building and already have rolled out in that respect. And the second one, with the Kenya Commercial Bank and the Kenya Commercial Bank Foundation, has 2 interesting work pillars. There, we're looking and working to provide technical training in agriculture, in construction, and manufacturing, while at the same time providing skills on business development services and access to loan and finance to MSMEs. I'll not go into a lot of detail here, but we do have some very exciting work with young people on greenhouses and farming using hydroponics. The other one is to improve access to financial services and markets for 2 million smallholder farmers living in arid and semi-arid areas in Kenya and Rwanda. Allow me to jump to the last one because I will be highlighting the digital component, given my role and also the partnership that we have with Immobilis in Nigeria. In improving the quality and relevance of the curriculum and training for national polytechnics and TVETs, we're looking to identify and work with National Polytechnic, and this is work already underway, the Institute of Science and Technology, who have been identified by the Ministry of Education and other ministries to improve the quality of content, instruction, and linkages of students into employment. We're also looking to support and are working to support the blueprint for TVET in engagement with private sector through a demand-driven training or implementation of demand-driven training and creating pathways for graduates to get connected to private sector and get work, or strengthening their capability to start their own enterprises. I'll spend the next couple of minutes talking about, in more detail, our partnership on Ajira. But before even that, a broader partnership in the digital component. I will talk about the operationalizing Ajira digital program in a little more detail in the next slide. So let me go to the training and work placement, how we have so far partnered with Moringa School and Ajiri. Our partnership Moringa School looks at increasing skills at mid-level or high level for coding, about 1,500 women and youth from low-income backgrounds by training them and placing them in jobs, specifically in software development. The engagement and partnership with Ajiri, which is a job placement and training platform, has allowed young people to be able to access or know where jobs are, at the same time train themselves through the content that's on the platform and upskill them, including those who would want to join the security sector. Why would we want to focus on digital jobs? Well, bear with me on the presentation there. Why would you want to focus on digital jobs in Young Africans, Kenya? The first one is the ICT intensity of jobs is increasing. It's visibly increasing, especially in light of the COVID-19 and the theme for today's webinar. We see the intensity in both tech and non-tech jobs increasing significantly in the last decade, and the need for people to have advanced ICT skills. Those that have the intensity or proficiency requirements increased by 26% in sub-Saharan Africa and account for up to 6.7% and 18.4% of jobs in Ghana and Kenya respectively. And that's fairly significant in only a decade. The second one is specifically to Kenya. Kenya is experiencing a skills mismatch. What we are seeing through the education system and what the labor market is requiring seems to have some gap there. 59% of tertiary graduates are social science majors, and only 29% are in STEM majors. The other one is that the largest proportion of youth function is in informal sector, and we do know, as Nyambura has said and the team earlier, over 80% of our youth will end up in informal sector, and that's where the jobs or work is. So in response, we see two main interventions, which I will explain in the examples of our partnerships. One is to expand the number of direct digital workers, and the other one is to expand the number of digitally enabled workers. And what's the distinction there? Direct digital workers, we will do that by investing in the digital skills that can catalyze the technology innovation ecosystem. And in digitally enabled workers is that we provide the ability for people to interact with technology and be more productive in their work. For eMobilis, the two partnerships that I had said I'll provide more detail on, under Ajira Digital that Nyambura has so well covered, there are two pieces there that we are partnering on. The first one being the operationalization of Ajira Youth Empowerment Centers. The infrastructure provided, these IX, as we call them, will be to provide and conduct relevant work readiness training that leads to job linkages, either online or otherwise. At the time of partnership, we were targeting and looking at 101. Nyambura just shared that we're now at 300, but this partnership will look at 101 Ajira Youth Empowerment Centers across the entire country being provided, which will provide devices and internet under the Ministry of ICT. Our role is to support the running of this through the training aspect, the availment of the digital curricula, and the support to young people across the entire country who would want to utilize and use these centers that are, again, as I say, under the Ministry of ICT, with the program being run by eMobilis. And the second one is to institutionalize Ajira digital clubs. I've seen someone ask a question in the chat box. Do you have any? I think, Nyambura, you'll answer that. Outside or beyond the universities, we do have clubs in TVETs and universities, and we will be supporting that through our partnership with eMobilis. And finally, is our partnership with KEPSA. Pardon? And finally is our partnership with KEPSA. Our partnership with KEPSA as the anchor or key private sector representative entity or body looks at 3 areas. And the first one is the government or facilitating the process of the government increasing efficiency by adopting digitization of services in reaching more people and becoming more efficient. We estimate in our partnership now or in future that the government and this e-government process could lead up to 500,000 jobs available to citizens and primarily young people. And the second one is the private sector growth in the support of the informal sector or digitally enabled platforms. And that, as shared, would be examples of, how does a plumber increase his ability to access the market? He can do that through a digital platform, even though the work itself is not a digital platform. And KEPSA will support this by mobilizing the actors in that space to catalyze the opportunities that may arise there. And then finally is to revamp the existing Agera digital platform as a resource and as a tool that can help young people to gain the skills, be aware where the opportunities are, and at the same time be, enable the engagements in our training. So booking of training, statistics, and knowing how far we've gone and how young people can be supported. So it becomes a central location for that kind of feedback. Those are the key partnerships that are feeding or working right now in regards to digital economy. We look to expand that as a foundation, and we continue to celebrate and support the work that the team is doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick, for that very detailed presentation. Just a quick update. We are in communication with Dr. Lawrence Guantai's office because there's someone who was supposed to represent him. However, she's engaged somewhere and she'll be coming in at a later time. But for now, would like to open the floor for Q&As addressed to Dr. Ehud Gashugu, Nyambura, and Patrick. So the modality for that will be ideally you raise your hand, then we will unmute you, you will address your question, then we will mute you. So the floor is open for Q&As. If you have a question, we encourage you to please raise your hand. Okay, let me just open. There was a question that came earlier. Someone was asking about any platforms that facilitate dog breeders, marketing of dog breeders. Dr. Ehud, Nyambura, Patrick, is there anybody who can advise us on any platforms that people can be able to market their products, dog food, or whether they are selling or how they can be able to better their business? As we wait for questions. Okay, great. There's somebody with a question. Let me just quickly unmute them. Please address your question.
Hi, my name is Samuel. So I heard that you mentioned something about Moringa School and you having a partnership with Moringa School to empower the youth who are interested in coding. But you mentioned that it was only for it's more focused on women. Is it just primarily just for women, or are there opportunities for men as well? And can you like elaborate a little bit more on what the partnership entails for those who are underprivileged and would like to get into the coding industry?
Thank you, Samuel, for your question. Patrick?
Oh, thank you for that question. So the partnership is, yes, primarily women. I didn't mention, I think I missed to mention that our goal and our aspiration is to have 70% of the 5 million being women in the country. So it's a fairly ambitious goal. The partnership with Moringa School makes it possible for those who are eligible or qualify to get into their training programs. And yes, it is both young women and men. You would need to connect with them directly and go through the process. I can share the website here, but our partnership enables those who may otherwise not have been able to complete their studies or be able to pay for those studies, undertake and complete them under the partnership and the support of the MasterCard Foundation with Moringa School. I hope that answers the question.
Samuel, are you satisfied with the answer?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
But I was wondering how does someone go about the process of now registering, like for the like in terms of, because I've seen Moringa School, I've seen it before, but how do you now register from now the Ajira point of view, like register from Ajira now for the underprivileged, someone who cannot pay the cost, afford the cost?
Patrick?
Samuel, I've just shared on the link, the Moringa School link, and how you can get to learn more about them. So I need to make it clear that Moringa School does this independently. They have their own selection process and they have their own requirements of who can join, and it's a very competitive process. And so you would need to go through that process. I must also note this is not under Ajira. The Ajira partnership, as I shared, is KEPSA, that was managing the private sector and e-government services, automation and digitization, as well as the revamping of the Ajira platform, while Immobilis is supporting and enabling the nationalization or operationalization across the nation of Ajira through training and supporting and providing support and capacity for the Ajira Youth Empowerment Centers. Moringa and Ajiri partnerships are separate with the foundation. So it's our commitment to the skills development in the space of digital economy, but they are separate from Ajira, even though they do feed and are consistent, of course, in contributing to what Ajira is also doing. Those are separate agreements or partnerships.
Thank you, Patrick. There is another question here, and it is addressed to you. The question comes from Freedom Wangi. It is, does Kenya have the right policies to facilitate this digital economy? If not, is there anything that is being done about it?
Thank you, Frida. I would very humbly also say that Nyambura has good insights in this regard, given her role and just the latitude or the view that she has. She has very good sights. Kenya as a country has made fairly good progress in the digital economy in comparison with other countries in Africa. It has high potential. And it has also made fairly bold and interesting advancements in its thinking and its policy environment, which is why we are one of the top countries in Africa and in the developing world. So there are policies that are positive. We just saw the signing or the coming to force of the act of the data protection, ETC. We did have the launch of the digital blueprint last year that I think Nyambura talked about. There are other things to be done, and it is our hope that this partnership with the Ministry of ICT, together with other actors like private sector, will help identify those areas that can catalyze or accelerate the growth of the sector. So we are not completely there. We haven't done everything, but I think together and collaboratively, we can be able to find opportunities of how we can continue the development and the growth of the sector.
Thank you, Patrick. There is one question that is coming from Mothoni Mate. She's from the National Cancer Institute of Kenya, and she stipulates that it's a semi-autonomous government institution mandated with cancer management in Kenya. And her query is, how can she partner up with this particular platform to empower the youth? So I'm just throwing it out there to either Dr. Ehud or Nyambura or Patrick to elaborate more.
Given the partnership, I would request either Ehud. Actually, I think Ehud would be best placed in terms of partnerships to respond to this if he's there.
Okay. Dr. Ehud? Okay, I think we will probably just come
Yvonne,
back.
I think I can answer on that.
Thank you.
As I said, we work collaboratively with the ecosystem, and in fact, many of the partners that we work with have emailed us directly through ajira@ict.go.ke. We'll always facilitate a meeting, understand the perspective of the user, what they need, and then we'll be able to work. So yes, we are open to working with you. Just reach out to us. And we'll meet outside of the meeting and determine what kind of partnership we do. Just to note that a lot of the partnerships we have, for example, we've worked in the past with the Kenya Association for the Blind. We do work with targeted groups, even to offer direct training to their membership base. So we have a very diverse range of partnerships that we can do. So do reach out to us, ajira@ict.go.ke. If we can't do it directly as us, we will guide you on who can work with you.
Thank you, Nyambura. There is a question coming from Eric Musau. Eric, I will unmute you so that you can be able to address your query. Just bear with me. Eric?
Yes, thank you very much for your presentations. My question is around especially companies, small companies especially, which might look to sort of plug into this ecosystem and supply chains along that. There could be, for example, some segments of the gig economy which are not necessarily fully addressed, for example, by individuals, because I notice most of the work is mainly sort of targeted at individuals. For example, in animation, sometimes you have, you might need to work with small animation studios, and how can, for example, small animation studios be able to plug into this ecosystem and be able to get jobs, for example, in such platforms, so that it's not necessarily from an individual perspective, but from a company perspective. And of course, in some cases, there could still be some components which smaller companies might be able to outsource and so forth, so that it's both ways. Both companies are able to get work as well as being able to outsource through the platforms. Thank you.
Dr. Ehud, Nyambura, Patrick would like to take that one. Nyambura, go for it.
Yes, so let me try and answer that one. So if you notice, what we are trying to do is grow the ecosystem of players such as yourself, Eric, to be able to find work and post work. For us to do that, the Ajira Digital Program in itself does not do what the private sector does. So to give to clarify clearly, we do not build a work platform as government, but what we do is we find innovators and entrepreneurs who have built platforms. So your example, for example, you would need an equivalent of an Upwork. Right now we don't have an equivalent of a local Upwork, but we do have a lot of innovations around the blue collar ecosystem. There's a couple of players in there. And there is platforms like Kuhustle and Ajiri who are offering a form of linkage platform. So you, for example, would register yourself on Ajiri as a worker, but also as an employer. So if you want to scale up fast, you would be able to get youth with the skill sets that you need on these platforms that you can rate later. Or if they post a job that your studio can do, you would be able to earn work from there. So what we are trying to do is to show the gap in the market where there is an opportunity for an equivalent, for lack of a better one, an Upwork or freelancer equivalent locally, where the companies and the youth go online, are connected and are able to rate each other. Right now, all the platforms we are seeing are specific to certain skill sets. Nobody has come together and put a platform for all skill sets combined. And if that exists, then we help them grow. We help them with awareness, marketing campaigns, and just basically help youth understand that it exists and employers understand that it exists.
Great, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nyambura. There's a question that's coming from Beatrice Utawa. Beatrice?
Hi, morning, everyone. My question will be, we have youth who are also with disability. So how do we make sure that they are also incorporated as a part of the digital world? Yeah.
Patrick, Nyambura, Ehud, anyone like to address that?
So Beatrice, thank you for your question. In terms of targeting and working with persons with disability, this is a conscious effort that the program has tried to do. We found, for example, in some certain types of jobs, say like for transcription, the blind are very good at managing those jobs. They have a very good sense of hearing. And so even as we design the program, like the judiciary transcription project that we're doing, we will have and purposefully target to have a percentage geared towards persons with disability to be able to access those jobs. Of course, one of the biggest challenges for persons with disability is having the appropriate devices because they do need extra devices. At the moment, we have not managed to scale up our centers with devices that are compliant. So for example, with Braille keyboards and any other type of keyboards, this is work in progress and we hope it's in the pipeline for us to be able to do that. But what we do is we do partner with the associations that the persons with disabilities belong to. If they already have computer labs and centers, we offer our trainings through them in partnership, or we also work with bodies that already have programs geared towards persons with disabilities, and then we offer our programs through them. But we do take note that we need to do better in engaging them. But for sure, we've worked with the Kenya School of the Blind, and we're looking to partner with much more to be able to offer these jobs, not just to that whole ecosystem as well.
Thank you, Nyambura. Another one, this one is actually about policy, so I'm just going to throw it at you. The question is coming from Cliforina, and the question is, what direction of policy does the key partners think should be taken as regards to availability of affordable devices like computers and laptops to the jobless youth willing to join the digital workspace? Something that will support the government efforts of widespread internet availability through the loan balloons.
Okay, so on a policy perspective, I did highlight that our ICT policy and digital economy actually believe in ubiquitous, affordable, and reliable internet for all. And part of having internet is also a pipeline of affordable devices, content, and an ecosystem that is able to thrive. For ubiquitous access, we do have the Universal Service Fund that looks to roll out internet connectivity in areas that the telcos and the service providers would consider non-commercially viable. And we've been doing a lot of work on ensuring we're able to roll out in many of the marginalized areas. The other one that you've highlighted in terms of Project Loon is also very key for us, because Project Loon reduces the cost of laying fiber and offers connectivity across the board. Last week, we were in Baringo, an area that doesn't even have the 2G coverage, but now they have 4G coverage, and we're able to do video calls and test the connectivity, which works very well. But that doesn't end there. When we talk to the locals in Baringo, many of them don't have devices. So as a ministry, we've been working towards looking at how can we get local manufacturing and local assembly of devices, and that is the only way we'll reduce the costs. Through the digital literacy program that was providing laptops to the schools, we have now 2 local assembly plants, one in Moi University and Eldoret, and one in Jomo Kenyatta University. Above that, we also have other partners, about 3 or 4, who are looking to set up locally and start making the devices locally. So we do have a lot of work looking around and geared towards attracting investments in device manufacturing, so that when it comes to obtaining any smart device, whether it's a laptop, a desktop, or even a TV, a smart TV, that they're done locally so that our citizens are able to afford them. And as long as we keep importing them, we will never be able to match the costs. But that said, the journey is a long one, and it's a collaborative one. For us to do local manufacturing, we need reliable internet and electricity, we need reliable electricity. So working with the Ministry of Energy to make sure that the electricity is affordable, and also building special economic zones that offer lower cost electricity, and also availability of raw materials, so that the whole ecosystem can survive. So it's not a one clear answer, it's a collaborative one government approach, and we are working very closely with the private sector to really spur investments in those key areas.
Thank you, Nyambura. For the purpose of time, because we've got a second part of the program that we really need to delve into, we'll take one question. I'll read out one question. Guys, with your hands up, please just park your question. We'll address it at the end of the session, because we need to move on quickly to the second part. So this one is addressed ideally to either Dr. Ehud or Patrick to answer it. And the question is, on local platforms such as Kuhustle, there's always a request for payment before one is given a job. Could there possibly be a way around this? Dr. Ehud, Patrick, are you willing to take that on?
I've seen a request for us to have our videos. I think someone was wondering whether it's bots which are talking. I think Nyambura would talk on this about the mechanics of the ecosystem. But I think for the foundation, our desire is to see a more robust ecosystem with fewer barriers for those who want to participate in that. And we know that this is an ongoing work for individual entrepreneurs who are running what we call the platforms. But the focus for us is, can we see a greater sense of engagement and participation at the overall or in the overall ecosystem? And for that reason, the fewer the barriers, the better. But there is work to be done. Ehud can speak into that, or Nyambura into the specifics.
I don't know whether Ehud is there. So let me answer the question. When a private sector company rolls out a job platform, they look at the niches and look at what competitive advantage they would be offering. So some platforms, as you've mentioned, might choose to charge a fee. Others don't actually charge a fee. They charge a commission on transaction, and they offer benefits such as escrow accounts, conflict resolution. So what I would advise the youth to do is to look at the different basically array of products that are available in the market. Now, I don't want to highlight any of the products because we're trying to help them grow. Each of them has a different business model that they've chosen to implement. If you don't like the model of being charged in advance, then there are platforms that do not charge in advance. And so what we are trying to do, and for any ecosystem to thrive, is we need to make sure that there's enough competition in the space such that platforms innovate and offer the best value to their consumers. So it's neither here, I can't necessarily say it's a bad idea to have a charge before people get jobs, although Ajira chooses to work with platforms that do not charge the unemployed. But if there's enough competition, you'll find that the platforms that are charging are going to drop the charges because majority of the traffic will be going to the ones that are offering the better value. So there are many platforms out there. We've listed some of them on the Ajira portal. If you do have a platform that we've not listed, send it to us. We will do the due diligence and we will upload it onto the platform. So what Ajira looks to do is to aggregate all this information. And if you're looking for which platforms offer content writing or which platforms offer design thinking, go to Ajira. Our work is to just list all of them, and then you can choose and try and see which ones work best for what you need.
Hi, Yvonne and the team. I'm sorry I got some technical challenges, but just to add to what Nyambura has said, from a private sector perspective, our role really is to catalyze growth across the different platforms, and we do recognize the challenges that are there in terms of helping young people access jobs, but and also the barriers to entry and access to that. But as we did speak, our interest here is to see that all the platforms that are offering different values and different opportunities for young people have an opportunity to thrive within that ecosystem. So we do support holistic growth, and we have an array of platforms, some who charges, some that do not charge, some that offers different types of work. And so we continue to propagate that kind of inclusivity in the growth so that we can allow a holistic growth of the total digital ecosystem and the digital enabled job ecosystem.
Thank you, Dr. Ehud. There's a lot of traffic in the chat box, and we encourage you guys to keep it coming. But for the purpose of time, we just want to move on to the panelists so we don't lose the gist of the program. So for now, what I'll ask is just either pack your question till we open the next Q&A session. Alternatively, you can just drop your query here and we'll try and answer it as best as we can. So for now, what I'd like to do is I'd like to introduce our panelists, and we'll begin with Paul Breloff, CEO and co-founder of Shortlist. Paul is the co-founder and CEO of Shortlist, a talent matching platform connecting skilled professionals to great careers across Africa and India. Shortlist combines chatbots, skill assessments, and interview tools to collect data beyond the CV on skilled professionals, particular digital and tech talent, to help make better job matches. Since its founding in 2016, Shortlist has worked with over 700 companies and over 1 million young professionals across 23 countries from a global headquarters of Nairobi. Before Shortlist, Paul was the founder and managing director of Action Venture Lab, a venture capital fund that made investments in over 25 fintech startups across Africa and Asia. He also spent many years working in microfinance as a corporate lawyer in the US and as an advertising account executive earlier on in his career. Then we'll be joined by Adam Grunwald, who is the CEO and co-founder of Link Kenya. Adam is a co-founder and CEO of Link, a Nairobi-based technology platform offering the infrastructure needed for informal sector workers to succeed in the gig economy. Link provides consistent income and career growth to thousands of informal sector workers each month and has quickly grown into one of the continent's largest service marketplaces. The organization is consistently recognized as a lighthouse example of sustainable impact in the space of youth employment. And he started his career at Google. Adam has gained important experience in product management, marketing, and design. While working with Google in Kenya, Adam came face to face with the massive challenges and opportunities that exist within the country's informal labor sector. And at the end of 2015, he founded Link and has been following his passion ever since. We'll then be joined by John Njoroge, who is the head of business development, e-commerce, and corporate sales Taskies. John Njoroge is a certified strategic management consultant and a marketing by profession, currently undertaking his second bachelor's degree in business management and leadership from the Management University of Africa. As a marketer with 8 years experience in retail management, John is a founder and managing director of Anchor Marketing Limited, Retail Blueprint Africa, and has worked with marketing and recruitment firms that specialize in offering marketing services and outsourcing manpower solutions to corporates and manufacturers. His companies have managed to create over 1,000 employment opportunities for young people. John is a Rotarian, currently holding the role of Rotary Foundation Director at the Rotary Club of Kikuyu and a patron of a community-based organization with over 400 reformed drug addicts. John is currently the head of business development, e-commerce, and corporate sales in Taskies, which is a leading retailer with over 50 stores, both in Kenya and Uganda. He's married and a father of 2 girls. We also will be joined by Grace Muniri. Grace is working as a pension administrator at Minet Kenya Financial Services Limited, having graduated from the University of Nairobi in September 2019 with a bachelor's degree in actuarial science. She joined the Ajira Club in 2019 when she was in her last year in campus, and it has been a great experience to her as she has had the opportunity to meet and learn from mentors and fellow club members, and it has opened her up to a myriad of opportunities available online for youth to learn and sharpen their skills, as well as get online job opportunities. She's really passionate about youth mentorship and leadership forums, and thanks the Ajira team for the opportunity to learn and network with various people in the industry. Last but not least, we'll be joined by Akoth Odhiambo, who is a clinical psychologist, Befrienders Kenya. Akoth is a clinical psychologist at Befrienders Kenya, offering confidential counseling and therapy services to clients. She deals with a variety of psychological and physiological, issues, including suicide. Her past work experience was as an intern psychologist at Jumia Friends Hospital, Kaimosi, handling psychosocial counseling sessions with patients, including comprehensive care clients. She has also worked at Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital during training as a psychologist. And with no further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Immaculate to take the panelist session.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. So I'd like to reintroduce myself, maybe for the purpose of those who had not joined our meeting. My name is Immaculate Mutinda, and I'll be the moderator for this session. So for this session, we'll be having our panelist discussion, and we'll be focusing on 3 or 4 key areas. 1, the effect of COVID-19 in the private sector and the adaptations that have been made, including changes in job profiles, skills needed, and emerging opportunities in different sector. And then we'll also be speaking about young people's hopes and fears, as well as the opportunities they see moving forward, or the ones they have already ventured into. And then we'll also be talking about mental health, that is very, very important, especially during this period. So we'll be covering mental health soundness and the skills already existing and needed by the youth to sustain resilience during this tough pandemic period. So would like to quickly or swiftly move on to our first segment, where would like to hear from both Paul from Shortlist and Adam from Link. with the topic of effects of COVID-19 in the private sector and the adaptations they have made, including changes in job profiles, skills needed, and emerging opportunities in different economic sectors. And we'd like to hear the version from the job platform. So maybe I'll move on to the first question. And this, maybe Paul can start us off with this. What changes in job profiles have you witnessed during this pandemic season?
Thanks, Immaculate, and great to be here talking with all of you. Appreciate the comments that came before. As it's mentioned, I'm Paul. I'm the CEO of a job platform called Shortlist, and we focus more on white-collar roles and particularly digitally skilled roles. So data, software engineering, design, product, digital marketing, roles like that. No question, COVID has had a massive impact, and I think broadly speaking, we've seen companies slow down or entirely stop their hiring. We've seen a lot of downsizing, and we've been doing a lot of listening both to our clients, but also very much to our community of job seekers. We've got about 500,000 job seekers in East Africa on our platform. Things have definitely been changing, and I think that one of the biggest changes, of course, has been the shift to virtual, and I'll speak more about skilled professional white-collar positions, a little less on blue-collar and trade positions. I know Adam will probably mention those, but no question that we're seeing an emerging interest on digital skills, and we're seeing an emerging interest on a different kind of soft skills. And to talk about the soft skills first, I think what's been interesting is in this time of COVID, companies are increasingly recognizing that this may be the new normal. I think right when COVID happened and on the offices closed, what we saw were companies that put their positions on pause, people they were hiring, canceled those positions altogether. One thing that we're a little bit encouraged by is that we're starting to see some companies come back and decide that while they were initially afraid to continue with their hiring processes because either there was monetary concerns or in many cases, they just weren't sure how they would go about interviewing and onboarding somebody remotely. I think people are recognizing that this is probably the new normal. We've got to figure out how to build teams virtually, interview virtually, onboard virtually. So I think that what we're seeing is companies that are vetting, not just for all the normal things you would vet for, but they're vetting for, can you work remotely? And so it's things like communication ability, your writing ability, your ability to update your manager and your team remotely. People are looking for an ability to be a self-starter and be more proactive and disciplined, even if there's not someone leaning over their desk, more creativity. So there's a whole area of those digital soft skills. We're also no question seeing a bigger opportunity around digital skills more generally. And I think this has been a theme that a few people have mentioned, but there's no question that as we look to where are the jobs of the future, they're increasingly around software engineering and data. LinkedIn actually put out a report this week that suggested that globally, there's going to need to be about 50 million new software engineers in the next few years, about 40 million new data and cloud professionals in the next 4 years. Those are a lot of jobs. And I think one of the opportunities that it's early now, but one of the opportunities that we're starting to look at is not just thinking about preparing the workforce here for the jobs locally, and that's a great opportunity. We're going to continue doing that, but also thinking about ways that we can prepare a next generation of talent here in East Africa for these jobs that are increasingly going to be remote, particularly as companies companies care less where that person is seated, so long as they have the skills, so long as they can communicate effectively, so long as they have a computer and internet connection. Maybe I'll stop there, Immaculate. I'm happy to talk more though, because we have been doing some, I think, interesting surveys about what it looks like from a young professional perspective, what they're interested in, that sort of thing.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Paul, for that. I would like to call also upon Adam to tackle or to give us his version, especially being in the blue collar, to maybe tackle that question, like what changes in job profiles have you witnessed during this pandemic season? So over to you, Paul.
Sure, Adam. Apologies, folks. Great, glad to be here. So my name is Adam. I'm the CEO and co-founder of an organization called Link. Link is one of these platforms that I think maybe was referenced by Patrick or Nyambura of a job matching platform, but we specifically focus on blue collar workers. So that's fundis, right? That's plumbers and electricians and carpenters and tailors and painters and everything else. And our goal is to try to connect them with job opportunities, whether it's a one-off job or a consistent job, with households and businesses. So we have about 1,200 workers on our platform that are earning income every month, and we've completed about 150,000 jobs over the last few years. So we do small things from manicures at home or fixing a socket, to large things like building a restaurant or an office, or maybe an AYEC center if MasterCard needs that. In terms of what we've seen, so I think the distinction was made between digital jobs and digitally enabled jobs, right? So ours would definitely be the case of digitally enabled jobs, right? We work with people that still have very physical or manual jobs. They cannot be done remotely, right? Like how does one fix a toilet remotely or paint a wall remotely? It doesn't quite work. So indeed, the sorts of skills that are required is, as mentioned, how to participate in these platforms. But in our case, the more important skills that we're seeing are the transferable skills, such as how to effectively engage with a customer, how to effectively set prices, how to effectively deal with a problem or issue, how to build brand, how to acquire customers, et cetera, have been some of the most important things. I think what's also quite relevant right now is, I guess, for everyone that's spoken, right? Everyone from Nyambura all the way to Patrick. I think one of the big changes that we're seeing now is that we, as people that are job seekers or working in youth employment and other things like that, we need to work backwards from where we think that there will be jobs or where there are jobs right now in the future. So I think maybe one of the things that Ajira can do is to give better indication of where we think that future jobs will be, right? So as it relates to the government's Big Four agenda or future infrastructure projects, are there going to be major jobs in who knows, right? Data science or masonry or carpentry or other things like that, right? But where are these jobs coming from? Because I think a lot of what's happened in the past is it starts from the wrong end of the spectrum, right? Starting with training or skill building, but then maybe those skills or trainings do not necessarily translate themselves into where there is employment. So this is something that we do at Link, for example. We consistently run surveys or like industry pulse studies in order to find out what sorts of job requirements people have at home. So for example, we were able to identify that demand for beauty services now down a lot, right? And it's understandable, right? Because in a time of COVID, you might not want someone touching your face or body, and also you're not leaving the house, right? So do you really need to consistently be getting your hair done or makeup done at the same rate that it was before? But things like carpentry or home repair has gone up. Why? Because people are spending a lot more time in their homes, right? People need a desk to sit at, right? Many of us are sitting at a desk or on a couch or something else, right? And we're using this a lot more frequently. People need to make sure that their appliances are working, et cetera. So I think the most valuable thing that we have done is consistently take a pulse of where there is employment opportunity. And I guess in this forum, whether it's MasterCard Foundation or the Ministry of ICT, I think stewardship of finding where these jobs are or ensuring that, that 100% of government procurement procures digital services from, like, I think someone asked a question about this, if any website needs to be made, if any graphic design needs to be made, if any video needs to be made, how do we make sure that that's made locally? And the same thing about, maintenance services at government buildings or you know, any of these projects. So for example, there was a commitment in the COVID relief fund to say that there's supposed to be 200,000 desks made for schools. You know, how do we make sure that those 200,000 desks are all made from locally procured materials? All of the labor is done by local carpenters, and 100% of that money goes towards you know, people in Kenya, as opposed to importing a bunch of desks from China or whatever else. So I think the biggest shift that needs to occur, and what we're quite keen on, is focusing more on where that demand is, right? Because for anyone here that's a job seeker, if there is a job that says, hey, you know, we're looking for people to do X, Y, or Z, that individual would very much know how to find the online training or the, you know, skill course in order to do X, Y, Z. I think the bigger question is not where does a person find that training, but now where does a person find that job? And then they can quite easily solve backwards from that. So yeah, so that's kind of my perspective on how the world is changing a little bit right now. That we need to focus a lot more on you know, where there is demand and work backwards from that, and also doing everything we can to generate or protect the demand that exists within the market, right? So you know, if we look at history, for example, sorry to take everyone so far back, but after World War II, you know, the biggest kind of tactic for economic recovery was called the Marshall Plan, right? The Marshall Plan was a major economic recovery project across Europe, and even with the US, that put a lot of money into building public infrastructure, whether it was dams or roads or other things like that. And that's what sort of supercharged a lot of European economies and led to really strong recovery in Germany and Japan and other places. And I think we have the opportunity to do something similar here. And I hope that we can resoundingly come out in favor of more demand creation, more demand protection, right? Making sure that work that can be done in Kenya is done in Kenya, and then solving backwards from that. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Adam, for the insights. So I'd also like to pose the next question to you, because your platform, that is Link, is heavily invested in the gig economy. So would like to know, how are the youth responding to gigs and freelancing?
Yeah, so I think the response is strong. We have many people that want to join our platform. Our biggest kind of bottleneck is, of course, how many people need a painter at any given time, or how many people need a plumber. So I think that youth or anyone will be very keen to adapt to whatever the market is demanding, right? And I think it's the responsibility of platforms like ours to make sure that our platforms are customized or accessible, right? So we have a mobile app that our workers can use, but if that worker doesn't have a smartphone or access to data, we also have you know, SMS-based communication or phone-based communication or WhatsApp-based communication. So I think the responsibility of the platform is to make sure that it is a usable platform amongst the users. But you know, whether it's a cleaner that's just joined our platform, or you know, a tailor that's been on it for years, people are very happy, like, to use the platform. I think that the biggest thing is how do we shift more customers to prefer to you know, procure services via these platforms, right? So we're seeing a lot of adoption from a household perspective, but how do we get to, you know, the government procuring services via these platforms, right? You know, the average painter or plumber can't bid for a tender to provide maintenance services, can't provide, you know, business registration documents, but maybe these platforms are the pathway or the bridge in order to unlock some of these opportunities. So yeah, we've obviously seen in the time of COVID a lot more people that are interested in participating on this platform from a supply side, but obviously a decrease from a demand side as people try to conserve cash or consume less services. But I think like the future is these platforms. That's why we're having this conversation. And I think that the bottleneck will not be how do we get job seekers onto the platform, right? I think there's a lot of job seekers on the platform, right? If you look at Crew Hustle or the other things that were mentioned, there's 100 job seekers for every one job posted. I think it's the other way around.
Thank you so much, Adam, for the insights. I'd like to pose my next question to you, Paul, and I would like you to give us an analysis of the skills that the youth visiting your site or your page have and what gaps are there, maybe the gaps that need to be filled.
Sure, and I think it's similar to the last question, and I think like Adam said, the problem's usually not the supply of skilled talent. The problem is normally there's just not enough jobs, and I do think that we see that with our platform as well. That unfortunately there's probably 100 people for every single job. So we do try to be more demand-led in the sense that we go talk to companies and try to really understand what companies are looking for. We try to start from the jobs that are actually on offer and then go work backwards to fill those. So when we talk about like what skills are we seeing on the platform or what skills gaps, it's normally very much in relation to actual demand from companies for that particular skills. There's no question that we have been seeing a rise in the demand for remote and digital skills. And we do think that, and those are the jobs that perhaps have proven to be a little bit more resilient to COVID because they're ones that can be done in front of a computer. So digital marketing, customer service, particularly customer service done via phone and internet and email. Data, software engineers, et cetera. So we continue to see that. And in terms of the gaps, I do think there's a mix of technical and soft skills that we can continue to see improvement on. I wouldn't call it a gap so much because there's plenty of amazing people that we've been placing into jobs and getting interviews and that sort of thing. But I think across the board, we are going to need to see continued investment in opportunities to generate real technical skills, particularly around areas like basic digital marketing, customer service and responding to customer challenges, data engineering. So not necessarily data science, which would maybe the level above, but just the knowledge, the technical knowledge to know how to construct databases, work in different cloud structures, things like that. Design and product sensibilities. We're starting to see that come up more and more, particularly within the startup community. So I think that's happening. Related to that, of course, is what's going on with our job seekers. And I think that we've run a number of surveys recently, a number of them with around 1,000 respondents each time, some more focused on digital talent, so data and software engineering, but mostly just representative of our community at large. And it is a challenging situation out there. We're seeing about 45% of our respondents are unemployed, and about 80% of those people have lost their job due to COVID. Of the people that still have jobs, about half are on a contract that they feel might be at risk with COVID, and that's pretty concerning. And so I do think it's important to acknowledge that to state the obvious, it's a really challenging environment, particularly for more entry level and junior positions where we've seen the biggest hit on headcount reductions. The other thing I just briefly mentioned is like, what are people looking for? So there's like the skill side, what do people have? What do they bring? I do think it's important to mention, I mean, we think gigs are exciting. But I will tell you that repeatedly, we keep seeing that if people have a choice between a gig or a full-time job, they want a full-time job. So we've seen that in the most recent survey we did, about 50% of people were only looking for full-time opportunities. And it was only about 6% of people that, for whatever reason, would prefer a gig. And then the rest were kind of like, look, we'll take whatever's out there. So one of the things I know there's a lot of excitement about gigs, but I would hate for us to miss that ultimately, if we had a choice, full employment I think is better and offers the benefits of income stability, benefits, and the identity of working in a stable team and company context. So I do think continuing to focus on these opportunities for more stable employment is going to be important. Hence, again, back to the reasons where trying to both draw out all of the job opportunities that exist locally, but also start to look at ways we can get people working on cross-border opportunities, I think is a critical part of the full employment puzzle.
Thank you so much. I'd like to thank our panelists for the first segment, that is Paul from Shortlist, who is the CEO and founder of Shortlist, and Adam, who is the CEO and founder of Link. Guys, if you have any questions, please just note them down. You can either put them in the chat box or just note them down, then we'll direct them after this session. So thank you so much, Paul and Adam. So
Thanks
we
for
move
having
on.
us.
Thank you. So we move on to our next panelist, who is John Joroge. He's the head of business development, e-commerce, and corporate sales at Taskies. So John, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Welcome.
Good morning, everyone.
Okay. Good morning and welcome. So we'd like to get an employer's perspective in this whole topic, and would like to know how the pandemic has impacted your sector.
Thank you very much, Immaculate, and I really appreciate for this opportunity to be a panelist during this important day for the youth. And I think I'll start by looking at or just explaining how the retail environment basically thrives with a very huge workforce. And what has happened is that if you look at the various challenges or the impacts of this pandemic on the retail industry, is that which has been very, very clear is the many loss of jobs, which has really led to low spending, low disposable income. So, and as most of the middle income, as well as the base of the pyramid have lost their jobs for one reason or the other, or they have lost their income, it means that people are now spending sparingly. So what this leads to an environment, to our retail sector, is seeing the reduced spend in terms of their shopping habits. The shopping patterns have really changed, and people are more cautious. They become more cautious spenders as far as the retail environment is concerned. We've also seen shop closures, and I think even some of the multinationals that have come to this space, we've seen closure of some shops like ShopRite. We've also seen from the same industry closure of some shops across the scene, which basically was an attempt to caution themselves against the impact of coronavirus. Amidst declining revenues, I've just said, they've really been reduced revenue and the reduced footfall, which has also been in line with the directives in terms of trying to curtail the gatherings of many people within the shops across. We've also seen now another impact that we've seen is that there is an increased focus on e-commerce. And there's been an increased sales of fast-moving consumer goods. Also, as a business, we have really embraced the role of e-commerce into our business. And we've seen this as one of the positive impact of this pandemic, where now we are able to serve people from home. And we've seen it's a culture change, whereby most of the shoppers had really shifted their spending away from the physical stores, and they are now able to really spend through the e-commerce platforms. Then also internally, what we're experiencing now is that as retailers cut down on the manpower, then what this leads to is the change in job profiles. And this then means that there is no longer specialization as far as most of the roles are concerned in retail. And this now calls for people to be able to multitask, and employees and their managers having discussions on how they can be able to handle the various roles within the departments using or basically using the reduced workforce for that reason. So these are some of the challenges that we've seen affecting the retail sector for that question.
Thank you so much, John, for those insights. So would like to ask you, or I'd like to ask you the final question. As an employer, what is the importance of upskilling and work ethics more so in this changing environment?
Thank you, Immaculate. We live in a fast changing world where new practices are being developed, new technologies are being invented, and the new discoveries are made. Thus, as an organization that basically builds its business by using the youth, we are able to have a situation whereby we are calling upon the youths to really adapt very quickly. So then I think having said this, then it is important to say that it's never wise to allow things to become stagnant. And which is why it's important for us as employers to provide ongoing training or opportunities to upskill our staff, because this helps in terms of expanding their knowledge and in terms of building, bringing out the potential from the various candle of employees that we have, which really helps them in terms of managing the job profiles with a more better keenness as compared to the shift from specialization.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That has been John Njoroge. He's the head of business development, e-commerce, and corporate sales at Tuskys. Remember, guys, to key in your questions if you'd like via chat or just note them down. Then after this session, we'll be able to ask all our panelists. Also, I'd like to remind you, please remember to tweet. The hashtags have been put in the chat box, and Yvonne will also just do it again to just remind you. So we move on to our next panelist, and that is Grace Munyiri from University of Nairobi, and she is an Ajira Club's member. Grace, are you here? Grace? Grace Munyiri? Yes? Grace, you're here?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Welcome to this session. So we'd like to quickly move on to you. And the topic that Grace will be covering is young people's hopes and fears, as well as the opportunities that they see moving forward, or the ones that they have already ventured into. So Grace, I'd like you to share about your hope and fears, as well as the opportunities that you see moving forward as a result of COVID.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to share in the Ajira team as well. I think the great opportunity that COVID-19 has brought our way is as youths, we've had so much time to learn, because there are so many online learning platforms that actually right now they're offering the certificates at a very subsidized cost. For example, Coursera, edX, and even the Ivy League institutions, most of the international Ivy League universities are also offering their certifications, some of them which are free. Also, there's been a lot of job opportunities online that people have ventured into. Like most of my friends, these youth age, they've been able to venture into the Upwork, as it was previously mentioned. Even there's the GoTranscript.com, where most of us are actually there and really doing our best so that we can generate some income as during this pandemic period. Also, we have been able to one of my friends was telling me today that making a hobby or income generating platform for you, because for example, if you love baking for the youth for now, you can do that and make sure that you sell what you're making so that you can be able to generate something for yourself. But the greatest fear we are facing, mostly for the job seekers, is the job opportunities at the moment. The 9 to, maybe quote unquote, if you might say, the traditional 9 to 5 jobs, they have been very limited, because before Corona, the unemployment rate in Kenya was 9.3%, but right now, as at March 2020, it was 13.4%. But I don't think that should deter us from really looking for those opportunities, because there are others which are online, and most of the panelists and also other presenters have mentioned that the online opportunities are there and in plenty for us to utilize them as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Grace. So as an Ajira Digital, as a Ajira Digital Club member, would like you to highlight the role of the Ajira Digital program, which role it has played in terms of upskilling and job linkages.
Thank you. When I joined Ajira, actually, I was very green. Even talking publicly, I was not able to. But after joining the team, and there are various courses that they offer as well. There is web development, IT networking, design, sales, marketing, writing, data science, and accounting. Most of those skills that I chose to do mostly the one on marketing, and which I have realized that it has helped me a great deal to also to enhance my public speaking skills. Okay, I'm not really in the marketing, but it has helped me to inbuild in me that confidence to talk in public. Also, I was also able to meet various mentors and my fellow club members, some of which at that time were not in the university. So I was able to get a glimpse of the outside world and how it is. And also most of the mentors I got, they have worked with me all the way and provided guidance, advice in terms of job applications, in terms of even furthering my career. So it has been very instrumental in my career growth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Grace, for the insights. And now to our final question to you as a youth and, representing many other youth in this session and also in this country, what would you like to see from the demand side, that is from the employers, and also from the supply side, that is the skills development? What would you like to see?
From the employer side, I think when talking with my friends, most of us say that you go for a job interview, you're just from campus and someone tells you need 2 years experience, which at that time you might not have. So I think on the employer side, that experience is really important. We may have the knowledge, but not the exact skill that is designed for that job. I think maybe we could be given that platform, maybe as an internship or maybe on a probation course, so that one can learn. Because when we go for an interview and then you're told some years of experience and you don't have it really, someone feels really left out, or you feel as if you may not be able to gain it, because for any you get, you need experience, and that experience is what you're looking for. Also, for us as youths, we need to look for these internships on for volunteer-based programs for internships as well, because these are the things that will all sum up so that it can be called experience. For example, you need, as one of our speakers has said from Tuskys, you need a job from Tuskys. If you have ever gone to Tuskys and had an internship there, at least you know the nitty-gritties of the job requirements there. So you'll be able to call it as experience when you go for an interview there. You'll be able to identify as their own, and you can be able to identify as a former employee because really you have the skill set. Also, for volunteer programs, community-based programs, and offering help to the best way we can, because we are in this age where we have so much energy, which if we utilize it very well, we can be able to combine all those things together. Because even from volunteer-based programs, you can be able to get the skills of teamwork, you can be able to even communication skills, just simple things, these simple soft skills, you'll be able to sum them all together, that they will help you a great deal and give you a competitive advantage when looking for the jobs. As well, as much as we are still on the volunteership based and internships, we also need to use these small courses online. There are courses on creativity, courses on public speaking, all these soft skills and the technical skills. If we are able to put them well together and present them to an employer, I'm sure none of us will miss an opportunity, even if it's a volunteer opportunity, to be able to enhance their skills and become a better youth, a resilient and better youth in this current era. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That has been Grace Munyiri. She's a student at Nairobi University and also an Ajira Digital Club member. Thank you so much for coming in and answering our questions. Remember, guys, keep your questions coming or note them down. So for our next session, we would like to really talk about something that has affected many of us or many young people, many people in Kenya, and that is mental health. That is very, very crucial for our own well-being. And for that next session, we'll be taken over by Akoth Odhiambo. She is a clinical psychologist at Befrienders Kenya. Akoth Odhiambo, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, welcome. Welcome very much to our session. And as I've just mentioned about mental health and knowing that this pandemic has even made it more difficult. Young people have lost jobs, Kenyans have lost jobs, life has become more and more difficult, with even the schools closed. This is universities in both primary and high school. The issue of mental health has become so much of a focus, to at least ensure that we are heading towards the right direction. So my question to you is mental health soundness. I'd like you to discuss about the mental health soundness and skills already existing and needed by the youth to sustain resilience during this tough pandemic period.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for including mental health care in this session, especially because a lot of people are truly suffering. This is a pandemic, so this means that there are a lot of changes in our daily activities that you were not used to before. A lot of plans have to be either cancelled or changed in a different way. There's also the health concern, especially for your loved ones and for yourself, especially those who have loved ones working in the healthcare system, or if you're a youth working in the healthcare system. So this is it's a very serious time for most people. They're going through a lot of emotional times. So there are a couple of psychological skills that can be employed at this time to help people just mitigate the distress that comes with such kind of life change. So first of all is I'd like to encourage the youth to be aware. When I say psychologically aware, I mean be aware of your emotions and of what is going through. It is very easy to be overwhelmed, especially by events going on. When the numbers rise, cases rise, it's very, very easy to be overwhelmed, and then it impacts your daily activities. So be aware of the emotions that you feel. If you're in distress, be aware that you're in distress. If you're angry, you be aware of those emotions. Being aware helps you to know what exactly is wrong. Okay, so when you feel you have all that distress in you, or your loved one is going through some sort of distress, there are things that you can do to at least make it a bit easier for them or for yourself. Okay, so one thing we encourage as clinical psychologists, we encourage people to have this, it's like a routine. We encourage you to have a routine of self-care activities that you can use. Or that you can engage in throughout this whole period. By routine, I mean self-care activities like sleep hygiene. So make sure you get enough sleep, make sure you get exercise, you get a balanced meal, make sure you sleep at the same time and wake up at the same time. When you feel you're distressed or overwhelmed, reach out to people you're close to trusted people. Reach out to your family, reach out to your friends. And I know right now you cannot move from one place to another to go meet them or things like those, but you can be creative in how you reach out to them. You can do that through social media, you can do that through SMSs and phone calls. Another thing is if you're a group of friends, you can create like a social media group, where you can check up on each other oftenly, because a lot of people go through a lot of distress at this time and they cannot really open up to strangers. So you can create a group for your friends where you check up on each other and you talk about any distress that you're experiencing, talk about the goals that have changed. Another psychological tip that I'd like to give the youth today is that right now, clearly people are changing the plans they had before. So it's a time to mitigate the plans that you had before, or you come up with new ones so that you're able to adjust to what is happening. For a lot of people in school, they're not in school anymore. So that means you have a lot of time in your hands, or it means the plans you had for the year have been interfered with. So to keep that time occupied, you can engage in activities that elevate your mood. There are a lot of activities that can elevate your mood, including exercise, music, dancing, and there's a lot of online opportunities for our youth. The ones I've had today being talked about. Kindly engage yourself in those online activities. Coursera, they have good courses. You can use that to hone your skills. So it's a time that you can create skills that you did not have before, and it's also a time that you can sharpen the ones that you have. I've seen a lot of youth on social media now honing their cooking skills. A lot of people are learning new things, so it's a really good thing to elevate, to use as a method of elevating distress during this moment. Yes.
Thank you so much, Akoth, for those amazing insights. Of course, it's been quite a difficult period, especially now that most of us, are separated from our families, or we cannot go and hang out with friends. But thank you for those insights on how we can socialize. I hope everybody has been noting that down, because I'm imagining, especially for us extroverts who are used to socializing and going out there and talking, and now having to sit by yourself and only make phone calls, it has been quite a difficult transition. But I would like to thank you for those insights. So guys, if you have any questions, please note them down. And I know Yvonne has been noting the questions from your chat box. And also, perhaps if you have any questions either directed to Akoth or Paul or Adam or John, please, and Grace too, please, you can also raise your hand. Yeah, for now we've finished. We've wrapped up our panel discussions. Guys, so I'd like to encourage you to ask questions. Yvonne is going to take over the Q&A session. Thank you. And I'd like to thank, before I hand over to the panelists, I'd like to thank all the, before I hand over to Yvonne for the Q&A, I'd like to thank all the panelists today, that is Paul, Adam, Grace, and Akoth and John, for their time and the insights that they've given us. So please, guys, note down the questions. I know there will be a lot of questions in terms of jobs, maybe even mental health. So we look forward to such questions, and even questions to Grace to do with the Ajira Club. So guys, this is your platform now. Welcome.
Thank you, Immaculate, and thank you, panelists, for your time and the information that you've relayed to us. There are quite a few questions that have come through the chat box, and some are addressed to the speakers you had earlier, and some are addressed to the panelists. So in no particular order, I will just, I'll just relay the query, and then we can be able to pick someone to address it. So the first question comes from Gituku Ngene from Masicops, Youth Impact Labs. So his question is, and I think this one will probably go to either Nyambura, Patrick, or Dr. Ehud, how is Ajira taking into account the social security of workers working on the Ajira platform and any related digital work platforms in Kenya? Have you considered accounting for facilitating access to health insurance, pension, financial tools, etc.? Nyambura, Patrick, Dr. Ehud.
I don't know if Nyambura is there. So, Nyambura, are you there? If you are, you can connect. But I'll
Yes,
oh,
hi everyone. I actually answered that question directly to but I can give the answer. So there's two aspects to social protection. There's the overall social protections that government supports, and these are being done through the universal healthcare. And through that, many of the workers will be able to really get access to that. So that's an aspect that the youth can be. Just hold on 1 second, sorry. Okay, yeah, sorry. These are the beauties of working from home. Yes, so I was saying, so in terms of social protections, when we started the program, this was one of the initiatives really looked at, and there was two aspects to that. What can government provide and how can we help? So we do partner on the fair wage ecosystem, where we look to make sure that at least we're educating the youth and really partnering on the international organizations as we fight what is called the race to the bottom, so that people don't keep pitching for the lowest prices, because that is not a sustainable ecosystem. Secondly, on the overall, through the government Big Four, there is a universal healthcare that that many of the gig workers are able to get access to, and this forms a bit of the social protection. But on the overall, we realized that a lot of the social protections have to come from the gig workers themselves, and so we worked with KEPSA to end the gig workers and encourage them to form an association. Right now we have OPWORK, the Online Professional Workers Association of Kenya, and through them they would be able at scale, if they have enough membership and numbers, to negotiate at scale proper insurance benefits, pension funds, and really have benefits for their members to be able to take advantage of this. Now, I know we have some OPWORK members on the group. Maybe we could give them a chance to talk about this, because there's government can only provide social protections to a certain level. The rest, if there's an association that is catering for the benefits of all gig workers as a whole, they can lobby to government on what they need, but most importantly, they can also be able to negotiate at scale to get some of the other benefits. So I don't know whether you'll allow for some of the, maybe OPWORK to just give a summary of what they do and how they look at social protections for their membership base.
Okay, great. Thank you, Nyambura. In line with that, I'd like to welcome Timothy Monene, who is the chairman of OPWORK. Timothy?
Yes, Yvonne, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for finding time to join the webinar. So yes, I'm Timothy Monene, the chairman of OPWORK. As you've heard, OPWORK is the Online Professional Workers Association of Kenya. This is an association that brings together online workers, people who work from the digital gig, to bring them together, so as Nyambura has rightly said, to have a voice. Yes, before we've never had such an association and organizations that brings together the online workers to be able to put across their issues and them being heard. So as an association, yes, having the numbers will be able to approach authorities such as government and even KRA and even other organizations, authorities that affect how we work, and be able to interact with them and see how best they can be able to work to improve the working conditions of online workers. So yes, one of the things that we are trying to do, working with the ministry and working with government and KRA, is to find policies and try to come up with policies that will better help us better work in the online gig economy. So yes, I want to also encourage the online workers who are also here, come on board. We are still a young organization. We are still developing it. So we welcome you to come on board, and let's come together and build this association that will help better instruct our industry. So thank you.
Thank you, Timothy, for your words. I will put in the chat box the address for the Upwork website, and you can go there as an online worker and register. I'd also like to unmute Jacqueline Salayan. She has a question. Actually, she had it during the panel discussion. So Jacqueline, kindly address your query.
Good afternoon. My question goes to Mr. Paul of Shortlist. He mentioned that most of the times people prefer full-time work or jobs as opposed to the gigs that we do as online workers. Maybe he could help us make our niche better by telling us maybe what we could do to improve the gig niche, so that we are able to, so that it becomes more appealing to people and people won't desire to venture into it more.
Sure, yeah, thanks for that. And I don't know that there's an easy answer. I think that there's certain realities of gigs where they're by nature shorter term. They're by nature a little more volatile in that they may be there one day and gone the next. They normally don't come with benefits. Some of the things that we see in some other markets around gigs are, and then this came up. This was a question to Nyambura earlier, but there are different either policy or company level initiatives to try to create some of these safety nets that exist in full-time employment in gigs as well. And so some of those things could involve easier subsidized health insurance, easier subsidized pension or other retirement benefits, possibly even some minimum guarantee of income or a minimum guarantee of work. I think just some of what we do on gigs, obviously, if you're trying to make ends meet, trying to pay rent and groceries, it's just nice to have the guaranteed income of a full-time job. It's not to say gigs are bad, of course, and I do think they're a healthy addition to an ecosystem. But as we look at the overall system, I think my words were almost pretty much just a focus on cautioning against us trying too much to create gigs if that comes at the expense of creating full-time careers and full-time job opportunities. But I'd be happy to connect more offline as well if you think we can help. I will mention we're also setting up something like a local gig platform. In about 2 weeks, we'll be setting up what we're calling a virtual experience platform. Initially, it will be geared more towards probably unpaid virtual internships, but it's a chance for people to build up work opportunity and get feedback on their work, albeit remotely. We're hoping that if there's demand for that, if we see companies that are excited about taking that up, that we can migrate that into something that enables the payment of people working through that platform. So it may become, we're not committed to this yet, we're trying to figure out what it might be, but it may become a more local Upwork or a local alternative to help find the gigs that are out there. Hope that answered your question.
I think we lost Jacqueline, but thank you for that, Paul. We are wrapping up the session, so we'll kind of just take about 2 more queries, and then we'll just sum up the session. So Evans Akoko, kindly address your query.
Thank you so much, Yvonne and Immaculate. I have a question that goes to Nyambura. Teenage pregnancies are on the rise, and most of them are being blamed on the influence of social media and internet. What is the ministry doing to protect young girls from teenage pregnancies? Thank you.
Evans, thank you for your question. And indeed, I think you've seen the whole of government is very concerned about the rise in teenage pregnancies. And indeed, this has been rising annually. Overall, it's not a one ministry initiative, but there is a committee that has been set up to address the challenges that are being faced right now. I don't know whether it's factual that it's really to blame that it's the internet that is causing the teenage pregnancies. There's a lot of factors that are coming into play. There's some cultural practices. There's some communities that are looking at young girls as being in the age of actually marrying. There's a lot of factors that are coming into this. So there is a task force, and in which ministry is part of it, that is working into how to address these issues and how to also make sure that the ones who have actually gotten pregnant are really mentored and grown towards giving birth and still continuing with their lives. Because once the deed has been done, nothing much can be done about that. But overall, there's an effort being done in government with the Ministry of Education, there's a Ministry of ICT, and there's all other components to that. In particular to the Ministry of ICT, we look at the security, the cyber security, and basically being able to make sure that young children are not exposed to content that will lead them to these acts. We have the classification boards and our regulators that have been looking a lot into this, as well as the laws on child protection that the CA has been working on sensitizing parents, because some of the challenges are also the fact that many young children are actually better at ICT than their parents. And so they are currently in this period being left alone with devices with no supervision and in an open platform for them to be able to access any content. So it's a joint effort. The task force has both private sectors and government looking to work at this. And it's a lot to do with outside of regulation and the laws, a lot of education to both parents and the young, as well as mentorship and guidance for the actual young people, both male and female, on sex education and really how to protect themselves going forward.
Thank you, Nyambura. We are taking the last question and then we'll close the session. So Alan Aguko would like to unmute you. You'll be our last question for this particular session. Alan?
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I have a question that goes to Nyambura as well. We have many youths who are interested in online work. However, the biggest challenge that they are grappling with is one, internet connectivity, because you can talk about online work without having to talk about internet connectivity. And two is the skills gap, particularly digital literacy skills. So what exactly is the ministry doing to ensure that this gap is narrowed? Because we need to have some sort of equality or equity between the youths in the urban setting and the youths in the rural setting, because these people are worlds apart in terms of internet connectivity and also digital literacy skills. So what is the ministry doing to bridge this gap? Thank you.
Alan, thanks for your question. And by asking that, I'll assume that maybe you joined after my presentation. You didn't get a chance to see the entire presentation. So in terms of the ministry, there's a policy that we've been working on, the ICT policy and the digital economy blueprint, where we look at equitable and ubiquitous access across the country. And if you look at some of the things that have been done, especially, for example, in this COVID period, where we fast-tracked the launch of Loon across the country, because this will provide 4G, which gives equal speeds across the entire ecosystem, and we're able to really roll out sustainably across the country. So there's different programs that look at providing connectivity across. On digital skills, it ranges from the primary schools, which is the digital literacy program that looks at introducing computers from the age of 6 all the way to post-university. And what that does is, in the beginning, the young students learn how to use the devices, and then they then learn how to they then use the devices to learn. And then when they graduate from the educational institutions, they then use the devices to earn livings. So there's a lot of work being done across. We presented this earlier. I won't repeat that, but we'd be happy to share some of the slides for you to go through. And also do download the ICT policy and the digital economy blueprint. It does highlight all the projects that are being done to address this. And also, it would be really important to showcase to you, and we do this quite a lot of the Ajira membership and the youth that we work with are actually not domiciled in Nairobi. We do have quite a big number of youth working, for example, as far as Ndiwa, Mbeere South, in Mukorweni. We do have youth working outside of Nairobi in our centers where we have the same internet across the board. And so it's work in progress. We do have areas that are very marginalized and don't have internet, but this is all work in progress to get everybody at an equitable level.
Thank you, Nyambura. Thank you so much for your questions and participation. I'd like to sum up this particular session. In line with what Nyambura has said, we will probably share some slides, but it will be up to the discretion of the presenters or the owners of the slides, but we will be able to share some of those with you at a later time or after the session is done. Then I just want to take this opportunity to thank the speakers who were Patrick Karanja, the program partner, Digital Economy Mastercard Foundation, Dr. Ehud Gashugu, Program Director, Ajira at KEPSA, and Nyambura Kariuki, CS Advisor, Ministry of ICT. Our panelists, Grace Muniri, Ajira Club, Paul Breloff, CEO and co-founder Shortlist, John Joroge, Head of Business Development, E-Commerce and Corporate Sales, Tuskys, Akoto Diambo, psychologist, Befrienders Kenya, and Adam Grunwald, CEO and co-founder Link Kenya, and all the participants who took their time to actually listen in and address their questions and want to learn more during this World Youth Skills Day presentation. We are very grateful for your time, and we wish you a very good day further. Thank you all, and have a good day.